Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us. Today, we will walk you through Italgas first half 2021 results. I'm Anna Maria Scaglia, head of IR team, joined by Mr. Paolo Gallo, our CEO, and Mr. Gianfranco Maroso, our CFO. We will address any questions you might have at the end of the presentation. I now leave the floor to our CEO, Mr. Gallo.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let me start with the presentation. Let's go to page number 2, where I would like to highlight the first half result. Let me say that despite the continuing effects of the Libera 570, we reported a strong growth in the first semester. In particular, the second quarter has seen a strong acceleration in respect to the first quarter. Thanks to the action we put in place in the last year, the operating, and thanks also to the fact that the operating environment is slightly better in respect of last year. Of course, our numbers show a solid growth that has been led by the hub, mainly, by the revenues from the customers, and as a last point, an efficient cost control. We will see later about the cost evolution. If we add to all of that our best-in-class cost of debt, we had an excellent growth in terms of net profit. We grow by more than 14% in respect of the first month of 2020. And the growth has been particularly in the second quarter of 2021. So let's analyze more in details all these numbers, and let's move to page 3. Page 3 show again another big result, that is the capex. We arrived to 420 million euro. That was 14% higher in respect of last year, and it was led mainly by the digital transformation and the network repurposing. We have seen again in the second quarter of 2021 a strong acceleration in terms of capex, especially if we compare that with last year's second quarter. You remember very well that last year's second quarter, most of the activity were stopped by the lockdown. Our operating cash flow again show a very significant number, an increase of 43% in respect of last year. It is the result of a positive working capital evolution, as Gianfranco will explain you later. Thanks to that, our net debt is under control, as you can see. Only 77 million increase, especially if you compare it with the fact that we paid a dividend of 219 million euro. So net debt reached 4.7 billion euro, excluding the impact of IFRS 16 for 70 million euro. So let's go to page 4, where we give you a picture of our investment. It's a trend that was already started in the first quarter, where we see an increase in the digital investment and in the repurposing of the network. The increase in the digital in respect of last year, it's even more important considering the drop in spending for meter replacement, and that drop is fully understandable because our plan to replace the traditional meter gets closer to completion. In addition, relevant to the new network, we added around nearly 400 kilometers of new pipes, 50 of which in Sardinia. And we replace nearly 500,000 of old meters with new ones. So this is a significant number considering that the expected, the increase in the capex investment is really incredible, and again set another record for our company. But now let's move to a new section that we introduce in this for the first time in the presentation. It's on page 5. If you remember, when we presented the plan, the strategic plan, we also presented our targets about reducing greenhouse gases emission by 30% by 2027 and reducing the net energy consumption by 25% for over the same period. From now on, we will present to you in every quarter, which is the progress of these targets. And so that is the first time that we are going to present to you both greenhouse gas emissions achieved at the end of June of this year and the net energy consumption. As you can see, we have seen an increase of overall emission that is driven by the fact that in the first 6 months of 2021, we inspected more than 35,000 kilometers of network, nearly 50%, probably even more than 50% of our overall network, with an increase in respect of last year of 36%. So if in terms of absolute number, we have recorded an increase in terms of CO2 emission, there are several indicators that shows us that the situation is becoming better, and therefore we expect a better result by year end. Where are those indicators? You can read it in the bottom part of the page when we talk about fugitive emissions. You can see that the number of LISA is the leak detection search area, so potential leakages where, let me say, the percentage of true leakages is higher than 90%, so the potential new leakages per kilometer inspected dropped by 19%. That means that we found less potential leakages than last year. In fact, the gas leaked per kilometer decreased by 15%, and the final number is the gas leak over the gas supplied was down to 0.064%. The decrease is particularly relevant in Toscana Energia, where the same indicator dropped by 36%. Relevant to vehicle, the CO2 emitted per kilometer traveled remained constant. But thanks to the use of 92% of compressed natural gas that replaced gasoline and diesel, we had an impressive reduction in terms of other pollutants, such as NOx, that was reduced by 7%, and particularly particulates that was reduced by 33%, a remarkable reduction. If you slip to the following page, page 6, we present to you the same picture in terms of energy consumption. And in that case, we have a reduction in the electricity consumption that was down due to the better office management and smart working. On the contrary, we had an increase in terms of energy consumption for vehicle, but you should consider that the number of kilometers traveled during the period was over 22 million kilometers, up to 24%. Always remember that last year, during the months of April, let's say mid-March, April, and May, these travels were completely cut to zero. In terms of industrial consumption, the action that we put in place show better performance, in particular of our preheating system. And in fact, even though the gas supplied increased by 6%, the increase of the preheating, the gas to preheat, the gas supply, was only limited to 2%. So we had a reduction in terms of preheating gas by 4%. And finally, let me underline an important economy recovery signal, that is the amount of gas supplied during the first 6 months. We have seen a significant increase of 6% in respect to the same period of 2020. To conclude this new section of the presentation, I would like to quickly describe the action that are in progress to achieve the targets that we set in the strategic plan. In the second half of 2021, we will start to apply predictive maintenance on all our networks based on the outcome, on the data that we collected from the leakage research. We are leveraging Seaside, our energy efficiency company, to run an assessment of our preheating plants. I mentioned that before, with the objective to improve efficiency and cut emissions. We are implementing inside our main pressure reduction station cogen plant and turbo expansion plants to produce energy that will be used in our company. We are using and deploying Seaside technology, such as save mixer and save gas on the network equipment, with the objective to improve performance. Last but not least, we think that training and awareness initiative on all our personnel regarding energy management system is going to be a key driver to reduce the emission, even more to reduce the use of energy. Let's go back to the traditional part of the presentation, and let's go back to the results. Before getting into details, let me just explain why we are talking about reported result and adjusted result. Is the same as we presented in the first quarter. As you recall, we ran a bond buyback transaction in February, and we treated the relevant cost, 6.4 million euros, as a non-recurring item. This is the only item that explains the difference between our reported and adjusted numbers, and it is, as I said, unchanged in respect to the first quarter. So now let's move to the adjusted result on page 9. Just a few points before getting into the detailed analysis. Despite the Delibera 570, higher revenues are mainly driven by RAB growth and client service. The overall operating expenses decreased by 4.7%. We will give you more flavor about such an important reduction. D&A was impacted, of course, by a higher RAB and lower depreciation related to meter replacement. The D&A analysis will be done by Gianfranco in a moment. And similarly, Gianfranco will explain to you the tax rate that is in the middle of our range of 27.6%. And the result has been extremely positive, an increase of 14% in the reported net profit. Let's analyze the revenues, and let's go to page 10. As I said, Resolution 570, the delibera that was issued on the 1st January 2020, is continuing to generate a negative impact. Not only we recorded last year 45 million less of revenue, but this year we are recording in the first semester 4 million euros as less revenue due to the application of the X factor, the famous 3.53%. So on an annual basis, the impact on 2021 revenues toward 2020 revenues is going to be more than 8 million euros. Fortunately, this number was more than offset by the investment we made in the past year that created the RAB growth that we are talking about, and also other tariff components that grew by more than 13 million euro as additional revenue. Other regulated revenues increased by nearly 6 million euro, and we need to look at this service to clients grow by 10 million euros in respect of last year, and that is fully understandable. We are going back to normal, considering that last year, in the first 6 months, we have seen a significant reduction because we were not allowed to go to the customers. What is very positive is that even the gas leakage incentive increased by more than 1 million euro in respect of last year. That is thanks to the continuous effort to the 35,000 kilometers inspected in the first 6 months. And then as a negative, last year we recorded tariff adjustment for 4 million that of course are not recorded this year. Also the rest of the business gave an additional revenue of 2.4 million euro, thanks mainly to the cumulative revenues coming from the energy efficiency company and gas, so the sales of LPG and natural gas in Sardinia. If you go to page 11, you will find what I have commented to you in a table as usual. So you can have even more numbers, absolute number, just looking at this table. Now let's go to cost, page 12. I think it's an incredible performance, I would say, to continue to reduce the cost quarter after quarter. And if we compare the first 6 months of 2021 with the first 6 months of 2020, all our costs decreased by 4.7%. This is mainly due of the drop in the distribution cost. Net efficiency on a like-for-like basis recorded nearly 6 million euro. And also we had other lower distribution cost for 3 million euro due to the lower COVID-related cost. We were able to reach this overall cost reduction, notwithstanding the fact that other activities, and I'm referring to gas activity, so the sales of natural gas and LPG in Sardinia, and the energy efficiency company, that register an increase in revenue, of course register also an increase of cost. But overall, we were able to cut the cost by 4.7%. And if you slip the page to page 13, you have a table that detail all the numbers that I mentioned to you. divided between distribution, fixed cost, and other activities. As you can see, we were able to reduce significantly at the distribution level either the net labor cost, thanks to higher capitalization cost, thanks to the increase of investment that I have mentioned before, as well as the next external cost. While you can see that on the other activities that are mainly energy efficiency and sales of natural gas and LPG in Sardinia, we recorded an increase of cost because the activities generally increase. I will now leave the floor to Gianfranco for the remaining part of the presentation. Gianfranco, floor is yours.
Thank you, Paolo, and good afternoon. We are now on slide 14, and we will comment the EBIT. EBIT posted 279.4 million euro at the first half of 2021, with a growth of 10% compared to the same period of last year. This is a result of 27 million euro increase in EBITDA that we have already commented, so a revenue increase of around 18.6 million euro and lower cost for 8.7 million euro. Secondly, now we will focus on the D&A. D&A posted a higher level of 1.9 million euro, which is the result of 12 million euro due to the higher network and metering depreciation deriving from our last 12 months investments. Out of these 12 million euro, approximately 8 million euro are for the network, approximately 2 million euro are for the metering, the remaining is 2 million, out of which 1 million is IFRS 16. This increase of 12 million euro has been almost compensated by the decrease in the accelerated depreciation, that now for this 6-month period is almost zero, compared to a level of approximately 10 million euro, same period last year. The reason for this is that we are now close to achieve the completion for the replacement program of our traditional meter pool. Now we will move to slide 15, commenting the net profit. First, let me point out the remarkable performance that has achieved our net profit for the semester, with a growth of more than 14% to the first 6-month period of 2020. We will focus here on the net adjusted financial expenses with a level of 25.4 million euro, excluding the component that we consider special item due to the refinancing and the liability management exercise we performed in February, which account for 6.4 million euro pre-tax. The improving of 1 million euro in the net financial expenses is the result of a lower cost of debt compared to an average gross debt which is higher compared to the last year. And this is mainly due to the positive impact of the liquidity deriving from the exercising of pre-funding that we have performed in February. Income from associates is increasing marginally. And finally, we focus on the tax rate. Our tax rate, we posted 70 million euro of taxes. The tax rate resulting is 27.6%, improving from the tax rate of the first month of 2020, which was around 28.4, you remember. The positive impact is a result of the fiscal benefit, mainly super and iperammortamento in Italian. Now we move on slide 17, and this is the time to confirm our financial strategy. Nothing has changed. The situation remains extremely positive. We can rely on a situation of cash of around 700 million euro, which is deposited in banking accounts and available. Our bond average tenor is more than 7 years. The situation in terms of instruments, as you can see from the slide, represents that we have substantially no banking credit lines. We have 84% of bond and 60% of EIB, expiring at 2037. Finally, we can continue to benefit on one of the lowest average cost of debt, around 1%, thanks to all the liability management exercises that we have implemented starting from the IPO until last February. Now we move to slide 16 and talking about around the cash flow. Cash flow is another impressive figure of this semester. We reached a level of 550 million euro, growing of 43% compared to the cash flow through the operational cash flow last year's first 6 months. This level is generated by a net profit before minorities of 180, adding depreciation and other non-cash items for 173 million euro. And finally, but very important, the working capital, which returned to be positive for around 196 million euro. Working capital contribution is a key event of this semester. Is due mainly to a positive billing seasonality for around 265 million euro, growing of 70 million approximately compared to the same figure last year, first 6 months. This effect is mainly due to an increasing volume of gas supplied in the first 6 months of 2021. In addition to that, we reported the negative contribution for the next tax payable in the region of 27 million euros. The 550 of cash flow, operational cash flow, allowed us to entirely finance the significant technical investment that we have accounted, around 412 million euro. Finally, the increase in our debt is marginal, only 70 million euro, notwithstanding the dividend payment of last May of 290 million euro. Now we'll end up with the balance sheet on slide 18. Just to give you a short comment about the net invested capital of 6,725 million euro at the end of June 2021, substantially flat compared to the end of 2020. This is a result of a growth in the fixed capital, which increased by 200 million euro, as a result of capex, as we have seen, of about 420 million euro, and depreciation for 210 million euro. This increase of 200 has been almost compensated by the decrease in the net working capital that we have already commented in the previous slide of 190 million euro. Net debt, as I said before, was 4.8 billion euro at the end of June, including IFRS impact of around 70 million euro, and the increase of the same amount, 70 million euro, compared to year-end 2020. Now we leave the floor back to Paolo for the final remarks.
Thank you, Gianfranco. I will just spend 1 minute. I would like just to recall and to everybody, based on the result we achieved, understanding the effects of the Libera 570, we show to everybody our capability as industrial operator. Investments, service to customer, have grown in respect of last year and have contributed to the increase of the revenues, but also our ability to reduce the cost thanks to the digital transformation of the company is extremely significant. For the first time, we presented to you environmental performance that I think is probably unique in our sector. and we will continue to do that every quarter. And finally, we submitted the offer for the gas distribution privatization, DEPA in Greece, on July 15th, so last Thursday. So the deadline was confirmed. We were very happy about the offer we submitted. We are waiting for the results. We do not expect the final result to be announced before the end of the summer, but we are happy about the work that we have done in evaluating the gas distribution in Greece. Thank you, and I will let you the floor for any question you may have. We are here with all the team to respond to any question you may have.
Excuse me, this is the Chorus Call conference operator. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and one on their touchtone telephone. To remove yourself from the question queue, please press star and two. Please pick up the receiver when asking questions. Anyone who has a question may press star and one at this time. The first question is from Javier Suarez with Mediobanca. Please go ahead, sir.
Hi, good afternoon, and many thanks for the presentation. Three questions from me. The first one is on the recent regulatory document by ARERA. Obviously, it's a first consultation document, but I was wondering if Italgas wants to make any comment on the aspects that are questionable in your view, or the aspect of the documents that needs to be rethought in order to make the document, the second consultation document, a little bit more virtuous. That is the first question. The second question is on the simplification, the decree to increase level of competitiveness, I think is the name. If you can give us any indication on when you are expecting the approval by the government of this decree, and reassuring us that the measures to accelerate the auction should be included there. And the third question is on the recent statement by the Minister for Ecological Transition on the electrification versus gasification of Sardinia. If you can give us an update on your view on the contribution of natural gas or renewable gas to the decarbonization of Sardinia. Many thanks.
Thank you, Xavier. On the first question, my answer is quite simple. We are evaluating the consultation document. We will submit by the time requested by the ARERA our comments, and that's it. I mean, we are going to see what the comments that we are going to make, and the others comment that will arrive from different sectors. What is going to happen later? I don't want to spend more words about that. I always said that we are in extraordinary times, and we expect that the regulator will take extraordinary decisions in order to support the economy, and in particular the investment in infrastructure. So the main comment that as Italgas, but I think we are not the only one we can say about this consultation, is that we expect that the regulator will consider the extraordinary times we are facing, the need of investment in infrastructure, and therefore the need to support this sector. On the second item, as you know, probably you have seen also a request from, we call ordine del giorno, something like that, from the House of Representatives, soliciting the government to take action about the simplification and speed up of the gas tender. You have also seen that some of the comune, like the one of Trieste, has decided to take back the tenders because they are waiting such a simplification or such a speed up happening, in particular about the recognition of the VIR also to the network owned by the municipality. So what we have said for many, many times, this was the main roadblock toward the tender. It happened to be true. It's an evidence. So, and the so-called Decreto Concorrenza, we think that will be approved probably during the month, later of August, let me say, between the months of August and September. On the third question, regarding Sardinia, our position has not changed. Our position is that the concept of the sector coupling is, in these days, even more important than in the past. We don't think that only with the electrification we will reach the target set by the European Union. And that is shared also with the European Commission. It should be a joint effort between gas infrastructure and electricity infrastructure to be able to reduce emissions, the CO2 emission, and increase energy efficiency. Today we have already reached nearly 1,000 kilometers of new gas distribution network in Sardinia, and for the first time ever, the natural gas has reached the residential customer in Sardinia. That's the reality. So we stick on our reality. We have committed to bring natural gas to the citizens, to the Italian citizens that are in Sardinia, as well as we bring natural gas everywhere in Italy. Sardinia is one of the Italian regions, and should be treated exactly in the same way as the other regions are treated. And we are doing that. I think we have been very successful. The fact that now we have thousands of new customers that are using natural gas in Sardinia, it's an incredible success that we reach thanks to our efforts. So again, my point of view on Sardinia is very clear. It's similar to everybody else. And I think also the study that was recently published by RSA, that probably you read it about it, demonstrate that the combination of electrification and natural gas will provide the best scenario for the Sardinia island, also in terms of cost. It's the scenario that shows the minimum cost to provide the energy to the Sardinian citizen. Thank you.
Next question, please.
The next question is from Harry Wyburd with Bank of America. Please go ahead, sir.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for taking my questions. I've got three. I apologise. I'm afraid that the first two are follow-ups on the regulations. I hope you'll forgive me for that. So the first one's just on your decision in your business plan only a few weeks ago to assume a 20 basis point cut in the allowed return. And I wondered whether there's anything that you see in the document that sort of significantly changed your outlook, or other things that came out in the document more or less structurally similar to what you were expecting. Because I guess the reason I ask is that you were the only company to release a prediction at a time that was very close to the release. So I just wondered whether maybe when you assumed the 20 basis points, you perhaps already knew some of the things that were going to be released in this document, or maybe a lot of it is totally new. So just interested in your sort of comments there on the 20 basis point assumption. The second one's a bit easier, just on the timetable. I guess compared to when we went through this process, I think it was 6 years ago, the initial proposals have come a little bit later. I think the consultation ends on the 12th of September, if I remember correctly. So my question is, after the consultation closes, what do you expect the process to be from then? Should we expect two sets of sort of interim and then final proposals like we got last time? Or do you think we're going to progress directly to a set of final proposals later in the year? And then third and final question, different topic, just on the on the Fit for 55 package, obviously it was a very wide-ranging or set of packages, I should say. Was there anything in there that you think specifically relevant to gas distribution or Italgas that's new? So just interested in your thoughts there. Thank you.
Okay. Hopefully I will respond to all your questions. If not, please reply because line was not so good. On the first question, well, when we elaborate our strategic plan, we did not know anything about, of course, what was contained in the consultation document. What we did, and I think we explained during the presentation of the strategic plan, was that we try to freeze the pandemic period, avoiding to consider the 2020 as a year of reference. And that led to the 20 basis point reduction. We have also explained that we have reduced the risk-free rate, that we have changed the gearing. So the 20 basis point was not just, we don't know which number to consider, and then we decided, okay, let's keep 20 basis points, but it was an exercise to determine the new WACC and with the assumption that did not consider the year 2020 being the year 2020, the pandemic year. So what is going to happen later on? We will see when the consultation will become deliberate, will become an official document. And based on the new numbers that the regulator will determine, we will see if we have to review our plan to keep it on balance or not, or our plan is fine like it is now. So I cannot anticipate. We need to know which is going to be the final resolution of the regulator. Again, we are expecting that in front of extraordinary times, the regulator will take extraordinary decision to support the Italian economy and the Italian investment in infrastructure. The consultation process is quite standard. You have seen the first consultation document. We are going to respond. They will probably analyze the answer. They will issue a second consultation document probably in October time, waiting for reply by probably mid-November, end of November, and then issuing the final resolution before Christmas time. Third question, Fit for 55. Some of these documents were already known, like the energy efficiency and the greenhouse gases emission reduction. We already know about the increased target in both of these topics. And regarding the energy efficiency, which is our commitment, either internally, that I have already shown to you in my presentation, but also as an external market with our energy efficiency company. So we welcome those decisions because it will speed up and will increase the growth of our business in the energy efficiency activities. We expect by the year end the gas market package that will complete this picture. Again, we expect also by the year end the document by the European Commission relevant to the gas, to the methane emission, for which, as you know, and we have shown to you before in the numbers, that we are preparing ourselves in a very tough way. I mean, in 6 months, We are expecting more than 50% of our network. I shall remind you that based on the regulator rules, we should inspect our network once every year or once every 4 years, depending on the pressure. We are doing, depending on the situation, more than 3 times, more than 4 times, because our attention and our focus on meta-animation is extremely high. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next question, please.
The next question is from James Brand with Deutsche Bank. Please go ahead.
Hello, thank you for the presentation. I had 2 questions. So the first is, would you be able to tell us, I'm not sure how readily available the information is, what the average cost of debt is in the gas distribution sector? It's just hard for, certainly me as an analyst, I can see obviously yourselves, Turner and Snam, but there's obviously a massive tail of companies which could be quite relevant in the whole debate around cost of debt in the WACC review, given that was obviously where the regulator was proposing the toughest changes. So if you have an average cost of debt, that would be very interesting. And then secondly, on costs, where you've highlighted obviously progress in terms of cost efficiency, but also that you'd capitalise a lot more costs, a lot more labour costs. Could you just explain to us maybe a little bit about what's going on there? Because it's hard to know as the outside. Obviously, you had a smaller capital program in Q2 last year, so was that a slightly exceptional period in terms of not being able to capitalise costs that you would have normally capitalised, or have you reassigned people that were working on, outside of the capital program to the capital program, and that's moved the cost across? If you could just explain to us a little bit more about what's going on there with the reclassifications, that'd be really useful. Thank you very much.
Difficult line to understand, but again, if I'm not answering to all of that, please come back to me. I will start with the second, and then I will pass the floor to Gianfranco about the average cost of debt. As I told you during the presentation, we have registered an increased cost capitalization by our personnel. That was not the only reason why. That resulted in a personnel cost reduction. It was not the only one, it was the major effect. Driven by 2 things. The first one, it's always a comparison with the previous year. So the first one is because last year, from mid-March until end of May, our personnel were requested to stay at home, working remotely, and making activity on ground only the ones that were considered essential by the regulator. So, in that case, the amount of capitalization was lower. The second element is the increase of the investments. 14% more means also a significant increase also in the capitalization side. And let me say a third element in the picture, this is important. We have that respond to you either in terms of capitalization, either in terms of less cost. We have internalized, and we presented that in the strategic plan, some of the activities that previously were run by a third party. Those activities were the most expensive one, so with the most content in terms of competence and technologies. So with that, make instead of buy activities, we were able to increase a little bit the capitalization and moreover to reduce third-party cost. So that is the explanation. So last year was extraordinary in a sense of not being able to fully capitalize as always. This year we are back to normal, probably better than normal, and also thanks to the higher investment. So these two effects combined together, you can see a significant cost reduction in the net cost of personnel. Because from a gross personnel cost point of view, we have seen a slight increase in respect of last year, because the number of activity that we registered overall increased. And so that's normal that our gross, not net, gross cost of personnel has increased. Gianfranco, it's your floor about talking about the average cost of debt.
Yeah, sure. On this matter, I will share a couple of ideas with you on the cost of debt of the sector. First point is that it's quite difficult to have an homogeneous level for all the gas distribution players, because, the market is still fragmented and the credit worthiness of different players is very different. One thing is to lend money to a listed company like Italgas. Another completely different thing is to lend money to a small player, privately owned, and so on. Having said that, the other important point is our level of 1% is not only probably the lowest in the sector, but is also the result of various transactions that we have implemented to reach this level. So it is a good point, I think, to note that it depends a lot. Your actual cost, your mark-to-market cost, depends a lot of the history of your indebtedness. And if the history is quite recent, like in our case, you have had the possibility in the past to refinance your indebtedness and to get the best condition in the market. But each time you make this exercise, you have to pay something upfront. Consider that when we had our spin-off from Snam in 2016, we had to, as you know, fully refinance our indebtedness towards Snam, toward the mother company, and we posted a cost of more than 110 million euros upfront in order to do that. And after that, of course, we had the possibility to take the opportunity of the favorable condition in the market for the time. So our current level is probably the best cost of debt, making the mark-to-market exercise, but is not affordable for the large majority of the gas distribution players in the sector.
Thank you.
Next question, please.
The next question is from Enrico Bartoli with Stifel. Please go ahead, sir.
Hi, good afternoon. A few questions also on my side. First of all, on M&A, I'm interested in your view what we can expect in the second half of the year, if we can expect an acceleration compared to the first half, and also if you have any interest in the asset that the press reported that A2A is considering disposing in the Lombardy region. A second question is related to DEPA. You indicated that a final decision on the tender is not expected by the summer, so we have to assume that by the end of the year we are likely to have some visibility on the outcome. And if you can comment on the competition there, the press reported that also EPH was an industrial player interested in the asset. Last one is again on operating costs. Regarding the decline in absolute terms that you reported in the first half, this is something that you consider would be replicable in the second half of the year? Thank you very much.
Well, about maybe in case if I miss something, Gianfranco will add about some on the M&A. What we are expecting in the second half of the M&A, well, hopefully there will be some movement in terms of operators that are willing to sell. We know about the A2A initiatives, and of course, as any other initiative of selling gas distribution all over Italy, we are interested in too. So we look at it if the process will start. We've seen that there has been rumors on the newspaper, but it was not commented by A2A. So we are waiting any official step forward, and of course, in case there are, we will consider it as interested one. On the DEPA timeline, we expect that the closing of the operation should happen before the year end. Also because it should be quite easy to evaluate only two offers. Of course, they have to go through the evaluation of the administrative documentation that was submitted. Was quite heavy, and therefore they have to go through each page to consider if everything is okay and valid, and then they will open the economic offer. We will not consider EPH, at least in with the company that was admitted to the tender, was more a fund and not an industrial operator. It, of course, took the support of the activities that EPH, the group EPH, has in the gas distribution, but is not, at least from our understanding, is not the company EPH that is the front runner in the offer, but of course it's part of the group. We feel that we are the true industrial in made the offer, but still the offer is not based on a technical evaluation of the competitors. The competitors were admitted because all the competitors is somehow the expertise in managing the gas network. I think the main difference will be on the price. That is the way that the tender is evaluated. We feel that we have a lot of expertise in developing new networks. We have just talked about with the question raised by Xavier. We have talked about Sardinia. I think we have demonstrated to everybody that we were able to develop nearly 1,000 kilometers of new gas distribution in 2 years. In a situation where we had also to create storage equipment, storage features, storage of the liquefied natural gas to supply our gas distribution network. So even in a complicated environment and difficult environment, we were able to demonstrate our ability to build new networks and digital network also. From an operating cost point of view, let me say that, every quarter there is the same question. We are demonstrating you that we are able to continue to reduce the cost, and now, thanks mainly to the digital transformation that we are implementing. So, are we going to be able to further reduce the cost? We have, the answer generally speaking is yes, but we have a clearly track record in the last 5 years to be able to continue to reduce the cost. If you look at the like-for-like cost, in the 6 months we were able to cut down the cost of 3%. So still in that area, in that region, we will continue to do our job to be more efficient and providing a better service to the final customer. I don't know if Gianfranco would like to add something about the M&A. I will let him talk in either the M&A of DEPA because he's following both topics.
Yeah, thanks. Well, just adding a comment on the M&A, it is also true, I think, that the current discussion around the regulation, depending on the final outcome, but if the direction will be confirmed, probably for the small operator, the life will become more difficult in order to impact with this reduction in the returns. And on the other side, also the expectation for the price also probably will be more, let's say, moderated by this new level of return. So all in all, probably there will be a positive environment, maybe not immediately in the second half of the year, but in the medium term for external growth opportunities.
Thank you.
Next question, please.
The next question is from Stefano Gamberini with Equita. Please go ahead, sir.
Good afternoon, everybody. I have also three questions. The first regarding this measure that you expect end of August, September to accelerate the tenders. Could you remind us what are the main three measures that the government should approve urgently to accelerate these tenders? The antitrust authority issued some proposal in March. I don't know. There were some rumors on the press in these months, but at the end of the day, we are still waiting for this measure. Probably there are some discussion inside of the government. If you can help us to fix what are the main three measures on your side. The second, regarding the decision of the regulator to kick off the process for introduce the TOTEX from the next regulatory period in all the regulated energy companies. This will regard also the gas distribution, probably in 2026, according to the existing regulation, but we can't exclude that they anticipate to 2024 as the other operators. What are, in this case, the main risks that you see for the gas distribution? Because the regulator underlined that they want to set the capitalization rates in order to avoid in the future stranded assets with a differentiated approach across the sectors. And so if you can comment on this. And the third question regarding your full year guidance, considering the good performance of your OPEX in the first part of the year and a trend that could be confirmed also in the second part, if I understood correctly. So it seems to be that an EBITDA close to 1 billion for full year could be probably very conservative, while you didn't change this guidance. Many thanks.
Thank you, Stefano. I mean, the first question is, I don't know how many times you asked me the same question. I'm trying to be, because you always ask three questions, I only respond with two subjects, not three. Because honestly, two are probably more than enough to speed up the tenders. The first one is what I mentioned at the beginning, recognition of the value of the VIR to the network owned by the municipality. I mean, the demonstration is that the Comune di Trieste decided to take back the tender waiting for such a decision. The second one that to me is very important is to create a national register for the commissioner that are requested at the beginning to put together the tender, and a different, or the same register but different person that has to evaluate the tender. Why it's so important? It was suggested also by the antitrust, like you mentioned, because at least this national register will create, first of all, the possibility for each of the stazioni appaltanti or comune to identify and not to think about strange professionals in order to put together the commission. The second one, it will avoid potential conflict of interest. You know that the current legislation prohibits to be a commissioner if you had some relationship in the past with the stazione appaltante, with the municipality who organized the tender. So one of the ways to avoid this potential conflict of interest that is prohibited by law is to create a national register. So to me, if we do only two of these, and these two, that would be an incredible acceleration on the tender side. On the TOTEX, we welcome every new approach set by the regulator with the aim to be more efficient and more focus on the goal of the gas distribution. So honestly, I don't anticipate risk for us if the regulator will move into the TOTEX point of view. Why? Because the concept, first of all, I don't see stranded cost on our side, considering that our gas distribution, and I'm talking about Italgas, of course, only, will be ready very soon, even than earlier than is needed, to manage different kind of gases, renewable, low carbon, zero carbon gases. So stranded is the concept like you can use for coal power plant, because in a very short period of time, these assets will no longer be needed. On our side, our asset will be needed for a long time, because they will change their main concept to handle just natural gas just in one way. The concept of reverse flow, the concept of different gases will apply to our infrastructure, and all the repurposing that we are doing now, all the digital transformation that we are introducing, will let our infrastructure to handle all these different kind of gases and all the different flows, one direction or the opposite direction. So any change in the regulation that will create a focus on being more efficient, more smart, more flexible, we will welcome. I mean, we are far ahead of any other one. Regarding the last question, the guidance, well, the use of term very conservative is probably too much. We confirm the guidance, and that's the end of it. As usual, maybe we will be slightly better than the guidance, but as you know me since many years, and we normally put the numbers that are always difficult to achieve, are not easy. So the guidance is still a target. Can be achieved? Yes. Can be improved? Maybe a little bit, but it's not very conservative. Thank you, Stefano, for your question.
Many thanks. And just a quick follow-up, if I may, regarding this RAB owned directly by municipalities. Could you remind us what is the total amount in terms of millions that are actually in their owns, and the revaluation that could be impacted in order to be put on tender these assets? Thanks.
Stefano, you rely too much on my knowledge. I don't have that numbers in mind. We can look at it. I will ask our regulator guys to look at and to provide to you a detailed answer. What I can tell you is something more. I mean, some example that we faced in the past when we consider RAB coming from municipality. Generally speaking, the difference between RAB and VIR is between 3 to 4 times. And the reason being, you know very well, the municipality were not able to provide all the necessary documents to the regulator to prove what they have spent to build their network. And that's the reason that the RAB is so lower in respect to the VIR. You know very well that in Italgas, RAB and VIR are very, I mean, on an average, are very, very close one to each other. There is no big difference, very, very mild difference between the two numbers. Of course, that is not true where you, in the past, you were not able to keep track of all the expenditure you made in building the network, and therefore you were not able to provide proof to the regulator, so the regulator applies standard RAB, and therefore the number is very low. But generally speaking, the difference is between 2 to between 3 to 4 times, so it is significant. In terms of absolute number, for which I don't know, as soon as we collect that, I will provide it to you through our investor relations guide.
Perfect. Many thanks. Thanks.
Next question, please.
The next question is from Carlos Razuri with Schroders. Please go ahead.
Hi, I had a couple of questions. The first one is related to the Scope 1 and 2 emissions, and I was hoping you could provide a breakdown by activity. I know that you're targeting, I think you alluded to gas leaks in networks and also the fuel used by the vehicle fit in your 30% reduction target, but I just want to see what the breakdown is now as of 2020 or whatever figures you have available.
If I well understood, you would like to receive a breakdown of the CO2 emission. If you go back in our presentation of our industrial plan, we made that breakdown. Probably we did not give you the exact number, but we can tell you that the majority of CO2 emission are driven by the fugitive emissions, so by the gas leakage. I think it's about around 80% that is coming from fugitive emission. And that's the reason why our major effort is in finding those emissions, but even more than that is even more important because, okay, you find the emission and you fix the problem, but sometimes it happens that when you pass the second time in the same area, you may find other fugitive emission. So the concept of predictive maintenance is that we have already a very significant number of data coming from 2018 to 2020. What we are doing is that we get all this data and we try to identify the area where we can expect in the future some leakages. And based on these algorithm, this artificial intelligence applied to the data, we will direct our maintenance, becoming more predictive one, more repurposing if you want, replacing the existing pipes in order to reduce in the future those emissions. And that's the major way in which we are going to reduce the 30% of the CO2 emission. If you want to have a reference, and if you go back to our presentation of this industrial plan, you can go to page 40, where there is a detailed representation of the 30% reduction. I said around 80% is coming from gas leakages.
Thank you. That was very helpful. And my second question was on the operating costs. I was having a hard time trying to reconcile the explanation that you give in your press release, where you mentioned that it's mostly coming from a reduction in net personal costs, and the explanation you gave in the presentation is slide 12, where I guess it falls into the bucket of distribution net efficiencies. How exactly do you look at this? Is this reduction in any way related to the furlough schemes in Italy?
I'm sorry, I didn't get the question. The reduction is linked to?
To the furlough schemes, to the use of furlough schemes for your personnel?
I don't. We do not understand the question, sorry. I mean, all of us, not only me. Which
okay, I'll try again. So if you look at the slide 12 of your presentation, do you attribute the decline in operating expenses to distribution net efficiencies? That's what it's the category is.
Fornero. Now I understand. Okay. No.
And now, if you go to the press release, you break down that as net personal costs.
Yes.
Which makes me wonder, is that related? How do you explain that? What do you call efficiencies in the presentation as opposed to personal costs in the press release? Is that related or?
Okay. Well, I try to to answer, but I don't know if I got the point. From a retirement point of view, I don't know if you were referring to that, we have a significant, let me say, around 80% replacement as a factor. So meaning that every 100 persons that are leaving the company will replace with a new 80. Of course, that will bring some efficiency from a cost point of view. Even though we are ending the so-called hundreds, being 100 numbers, the sum of the number of years in working with the age. 100 is make of 62 years of age plus 38 years of working. So we are phasing out this opportunity for the people to retire, and therefore that is not the main driver of cost efficiency in the net personnel. It contributes a little bit, but I told you, you probably did not hear me when I said that from a labor gross cost point of view, not net, gross, we have registered an increase of cost around 2%, if I remember well, in respect of last year. So if you take just the cost, the gross labor cost, we have seen an increase. What we have seen is a decrease driven by the capitalization cost of the personnel. I don't know if I was able to answer to your question.
Just a quick follow-up on that. So going forward, would you say that evolution is going to continue? So do you see a downward trend on the net basis?
We will continue to see, let me say, an overall reduction of cost, because the other element that I mentioned, and probably was not well understood, is the concept of the make or buy approach that we are using. And that we started this approach when we have seen a significant reduction in terms of meters to be replaced, and for which we have allocated, when we were replacing nearly 2 million meters per year, we have allocated a significant number of persons. So we said what we are going to do with the personnel, we are going to engage them into new works. So we have decided, we have listed a long list of jobs that are with a very high need of competence and technology that previously were awarded to a third party, and now we are using our internal personnel to perform them. So if you will not see significant cost reduction in the personnel cost, we will have a significant cost reduction in a third-party cost, because some of the activities that were previously allocated to a third party will be carried out by our internal personnel, especially those activities that are linked to the digital transformation. And I will bring you an example that was also presented in our strategic plan. There are activities that we did not have before, like the maintenance of the digital pressure reduction station. The digital components were not part of those equipment earlier, but those digital components will require, maybe not immediately, but very soon, some maintenance activity. That maintenance, we decided to keep it internally because it's a competence that will grow internally. So we will have more people allocated to do, let me say, difficult job, difficult from a competence point of view and from a technology point of view. So you will see more people of Italgas running jobs that require very high competence and very high knowledge of technologies. And therefore you will see cost reduction on a third party. I hope it is clear now.
Okay, thank you.
Next question, please.
The next question is from Bartek Kubicki with Societe Generale. Please go ahead.
Thank you and good afternoon. Just one topic I would like to discuss, namely the Greek privatization. If you can, apologies if I missed it on the previous calls, maybe if you could just give us some numbers for those companies in terms of EBITDA, net income, based on historical figures, also maybe the RAP, and whether you can confirm if the Thessaloniki 49% stake by Eni would be on sale as well or not, whether this is going to be the same transaction or a separate transaction following this one. And lastly, I suppose you will confirm, but just confirm whether any EPS accretion coming from a DEPA acquisition will immediately follow through higher dividends. Thank you very much.
Can you repeat the last question, because I had again the problem was a little bit bad.
Sure. I mean, I was just wondering whether you can confirm, and I presume you will confirm, that any EPS net income accretion coming from the Greek acquisition will immediately follow to your dividends based on your 65% payout ratio.
Last question is difficult. First of all, for a matter of, I'm very, come si dice, sono molto, I'm very scaramantic, so I don't want to anticipate what may happen if we are the winner on DEPA. So I'm not going to respond to the last question. To the other question, I'm going backward. The Eni stake was on sale, is on sale, but it will be a separate transaction after the tender has been awarded. But in the clarification that we received from the funds, the privatization funds, we received also the agreement that was reached between Eni for the 49% of Edates in terms of the price. So the price of the Eni stake is linked to the price of the overall transaction, but it's a transaction that will be consumed after the closing and not during or before. Regarding the numbers, I don't know if Gianfranco will give you the numbers about the 100% of DEPA, including the 49 of Eni. So it's the overall, not the one owned by the Greek funds without Eni.
Yeah, just to give you some figure broadly, because as you know we are covered by confidentiality, but the last reported figure for the RAB is around 650 million euro. And on a consolidated basis at the DEPA infrastructure level, the EBITDA is in the region of 50 million euro. And as Paolo was saying, this perimeter is now made of 100% of Edatiki and 100% of Edates and 100% of DEDA. And of course, the shares up for sale are regarding the 100% of DEPA infrastructure.
Okay, thank you. And just for clarification, this stake of Eni, this will be a separate competitive. I mean, it's not going to be competitive because the price will be linked. But does it mean that you will be the ultimate buyer of the stake, or there's a risk that somebody else may enter into the shareholder structure?
No, the Eni transaction will happen after, but all the rules have been already set. So there's not going to be any discussion, any tender, anything.
Okay.
There is a formula that has been agreed between the Greek funds and the Eni how to price the 49% of Eni. It was agreed between the two, and it was transmitted to the tender, to the bidder. Just a correction, I think we had some misunderstanding between myself and Gianfranco. The overall EBITDA in 2020 of the three companies around 80 million euro.
Okay, thank you very much.
The next question, please.
The next question is from Chris Labat with Morgan Stanley. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much for taking my question, and congrats for the result today. Very solid given the backdrop. We've had a lot of questions today, and so I think all of mine have been answered. So a high-level one, if you were to look at the tender processes and industry consolidation in Italy in your sector, what's the range of potential market share scenarios that you envisage long term? So looking forward 10 plus years, just to give us some idea of what you envisage for the firm, both medium term and long term. Thank you.
Okay. It is, I mean, we, in the elaboration of the strategic plan, we have done the exercise that will help me to respond to your question, because we evaluated one by one the item that will be under tender. And our market share will evolve from the current market share that is slightly above 35% to 45%. So we see that on the long term means the end of the plan, so 2027, our market share will reach 45%, moving from 35. So then it will depend on what is happening about the tender in the meantime, but we will see a significant growth of the market share. Market share for us is measured on the number of redelivery points, number of meters, on the overall number of meters. You may see different way to calculate the market share based on kilometers, but that is not the way that we measure, and also at the European level we measure the market share in gas distribution.
Thank you very much. And could I just follow up with one final question on the ARERA process in terms of the WACC? And I'm wondering whether you could give a sense, very simplistically, as to whether you're happy with the consultation so far, you're broadly okay with it, or you're upset with it. And I guess the context is, in the UK, we've just had a reset where we've seen a reduction of allowed returns of 200 basis points plus, and the company's made it pretty clear that they were upset from the very start, and they're now appealing. And so I guess just a comment in terms of how you think that consultation fits with your expectations would be really useful.
Well, normally I'd avoid to make judgment on intention. I'm trying to judge on the results. But that's the reason why, it's difficult to me to say if I'm happy or not happy or disappointed or strongly disappointed about the consultation. Because I would like to judge and make an evaluation on the final one. I'm going back to what I said at the beginning. I'm expecting that the regulator will face extraordinary times like we are living today with extraordinary action. I'm expecting that the regulator will act supporting the Italian economy, will act supporting the need of investment in infrastructure, will act supporting the need of the energy transition, and the investment related to. And they can do that because if they can support from the regulator point of view, there will be more room for the funds coming from the recovery fund, coming from Europe, to be used in other sectors that probably they need more than in our. We can do and we can support the energy transition and the digital transformation by ourselves, mainly by ourselves, as long as we will have a regulation that is supporting these efforts.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Operator, if there are no other questions, I think we can close this call.
Ms. Scaglia, gentlemen, there are no more questions registered at this time.
Okay, so thank you everyone for attending. As a IR team, as usual, we are available for any question that you might have and follow on. And we wish you all a very nice summer.